Having been in advertising, having been around the marketing world, working for this tequila company,
Sure.
been in LA, traveled, do you think a filmmaker should have their own marketing plan, like their own brand? Not just for their films, but for them.
100%. 100%. Filmmakers need to think about marketing. They need to think about the brand of their product. They need to think about who's going to buy their product, who's going to watch their movie. Now, there's this relationship that you have to build, and it doesn't come right away, because if you've never marketed anything before, it's like two different parts of your brain, right? You have to look at it like, why would someone choose to watch my film just swiping through iTunes or even at a marquee in a cinema? Why are they going to watch your film? It's very hard to answer that question for yourself if you have no practice marketing anything, because you're going to be very subjective about your work. It's art. It's precious. It's yours. There's a possession and a permission to it that, you know, people at different experience levels, they have different levels of control over the way they hold what they make. And it's very difficult to step outside that ownership of your work and look at it objectively and be like, does someone even want to watch this, right? And so I think if filmmakers expose themselves to marketing plans and marketing objectives, it's not about that they're going to become a marketing executive, right? And they're suddenly going to become jaded, and they're not going to care about the passion of filmmaking. And that's probably the worry. They're like, I don't want to study marketing because it'll take away all of the magic, right? But then you're also super naive about the fact that you're not preparing yourself for success, because if you work super hard and you stay really incubated and you know nothing about who's going to participate with your brand or your film, you will probably only get to make one, because it won't be successful. You won't have resources, or if you have investors, they'll feel like nobody saw the film, it'll lose money. So it's kind of, there needs to be a relationship where you become familiar with the dance between, I have to look objectively at the work because I am making it for an audience. Which leads me to my next point, I guess, which is eventually you have to acknowledge an audience. And I know people who don't. I know people who are artists, visual artists, true and true. I know people who are screenwriters who don't care about getting coverage, or they don't care about letting somebody else read their material, who may be objective or who may be critical. And that's great. That's a hobby. That's a hobby. That's not a professional. A professional understands the industry. A professional understands that it's a marketplace. Someone wants what you made or they don't. And if you want to have a career, I suggest that if people are really unfamiliar with branding and marketing, they try to understand it at least. That doesn't mean they need to have a relationship, doesn't mean they need to go shoot ads. But if they don't understand it, then they are cheating themselves out of the possibility of doing more work. And so I think it's super critical. I guess the other thing I'd say is that one of the things that's happened for me, transitioning from advertising to features, was that relationship with an audience. You know, I had opportunities, for lack of a better phrase, where I could get away with it. I could get away with pitching to a client a highly artistic vision for a commercial, and they loved the idea so much that whether it sold a lot more watches or athletic jackets or motorcycles, they loved the idea so much that I wasn't accountable to an audience. Now that's a huge privilege and it's a really great opportunity. But I didn't really know that until I started to go into developing the marketing plan and the release plan for our feature, because I was like, wait a minute, what's my relationship with this audience? Do I care about my audience or not? And do I even have one? I don't presume that anyone looks me up or cares about me, and maybe that'll change someday, but that's not why I do what I do. But I care about them. I was at a premiere last week doing a Q&A, and the first thing I did before I said anything or answered any questions, the person was very feverish. They really wanted to ask a lot of questions, and it was cool. They were awesome. But before I did that, I thanked everybody. I said, you don't have cinema without an audience. You can have a film without an audience because you made a film and it's just there. But if you try to show it in the theater and no one goes, it's not cinema because no one saw it. And so when I said that out loud, it was sort of like the finishing of an arc of an idea where I was like, wow, people paid money to see my film. And that doesn't make me feel good from an egotistical point of view. I mean, it doesn't make me feel bad, but it makes me feel like the idea that I wanted to understand why they would want to see it felt complete. And in that moment, very personally, in that moment, all I wanted to do was make my next film and finish it, because I wanted more audience members to see the next piece of work. And so I think there's a relationship between marketing and branding and understanding that you have to have an audience for it to be a high-level piece of work. And I hope people can figure out their own relationship with making art and marketing their art. And generally speaking, it's a tough ask. So I would just say people should open their minds.